Hello there. Today I've got 5 weird stories from history you may not have heard before. Hold on, it's got pictures and animation. Alright, our first story is the tale of Alexander Selkirk's castaway. It's September 1704. Selkirk was sailing master under Captain Thomas Stradling on a ship called Cinque Ports. Captain Stradling had just brought the ship to an island called Mas a Tierra. The island looked like Isle Delfino's crackhead brother. Selkirk was concerned with the conditions of the ship and told Captain Stradling that they should make some repairs before continuing their voyage. Captain Stradling disagreed because he was built different. The two argued, and Selkirk declared he would rather stay on the island than continue in this leaky ship. Shit! Selkirk immediately regretted his rashness, but Stradling wouldn't let him back on board. The ship sailed away, and his former crewmates laughed at his abandoned ass. But the joke was on them, as the ship sank a few months later. Before leaving him, Captain Stradling had left him a goodie bag featuring a musket, a hatchet, a knife, a cooking pot, a Bible, bedding, and some clothes. At first, Selkirk stuck to the shore, where he scrambled on spiny lobsters and spent his time looking for rescue, all while feeling the standard package of misery and loneliness. His beach episode was cut short by hordes of sea lions that had gathered there for mating season, and not wanting to cockblock anyone, he decided to venture further into the island. After venturing inland, his quality of life improved. There were feral goats, which provided him with meat and milk, vegetables like wild turnips and cabbage tree leaves, and a local bargain booze. But life wasn't all great inland. Much like living in New York, rats would attack him at night. The rats pissed him off so much, he domesticated feral cats that were living on the island. He built 2 huts, one for sleeping and one for cooking. Selkirk spent a lot of his time on the island reading his Bible, and also enjoyed carving his name and the number of days he'd been on the island into trees, which the trees hated. He also used his musket to shoot goats, which he would eat and turn their skins into leather for his fit, which he learned from his father and from a few YouTube videos. As he continued his hobby of shooting goats, his gunpowder dwindled, until he had to resort to chasing the goats. On one goat chasing occasion, he was badly injured when he fell off a cliff. The only thing that spared him from a broken spine was the fact that he landed on the goat, like something out of a cartoon. During his time on the island, 2 boats came to anchor. Unfortunately, they were Spanish boats. Apart from just not vibing with the Spanish, it was the 1700s, and they would have probably messed him up if he was spotted. So he just hid. One of the boats had spotted him, and he was chased by a posse of Spaniards throughout the island. Selkirk hid in a tree, which the Spanish fellas decided was prime pissing real estate. So they just peed on it, failing to notice Selkirk hiding there. It took 4 years for Selkirk to be rescued. 4 fucking years this guy was on the island, running around, smacking goats, making leather armor like it's Minecraft survival mode. But finally, on the 2nd of February, 1709, he was rescued. When his rescuers found him, he was dripped out in goat skins, and he took 3 feral goats with him for shits and giggles. Despite the ordeal, he had managed to stay relatively sane. Selkirk's story was popular in England, which inspired Robinson Crusoe, and probably all those other desert island stories. Selkirk surprisingly went back to sea after a while, and died in 1721 of yellow fever, like they all did back then. The moral of the story is don't get left on a desert island. The next tale is the reign of Roman Emperor Elagabalus. Elagabalus was made emperor at the age of 14, and much like the average 14-year-old boy becoming a Gmod RP admin or Discord mod, things were not great. As emperor, he kicked Jupiter out as the head of the Roman pantheon and replaced him with a new sun god called Elagabal. He had a lavish temple built to worship Elagabal called the Elagabium. The most sacred relics from the Roman religion were brought there, and apparently human sacrifice involving noble children took place. To prove his devotion to Elagabal, he had himself circumcised, swore to abstain from pork, and then forced leading members of the Roman Senate to watch as he danced around an altar. At his banquets, he would inscribe the gifts his guests were to receive on the spoons they ate with. Some of these gifts included 10 camels, 10 pounds of gold, or 10 ostriches. Those less lucky would receive gifts such as 10 hen eggs, 10 flies, or Discord Nitro. He married 4 women across his reign, including a Vestal Virgin priestess, who he claimed would create godlike Giga-Chad children. Marrying Vestal virgins was against Roman law and tradition, which said any Vestal found to have been getting some was to be buried alive. In addition to banging a virgin priestess, he also liked lavishing favours with his male courtiers, who were thought to have been his lovers, but I'm sure they were just roommates. He also apparently prostituted himself in brothels and taverns while dressed in feminine clothing. Now, for some reason, Elagabalus' actions upset the Roman elite, and in March 222 AD, he was killed by the recurring fun police, the Praetorian Guard. Sources seem to be conflicted on how he died. One source says the Praetorian Guard killed him in his toilets, which sounds the funniest, so I'll believe that. His body was beheaded, stripped naked, and dragged around Rome, then thrown into the Tiber River. The best part about all of this is that it happened in the span of 4 years. Most historians look down on Elagabalus as a gross, decadent fuckboy, but I see a different side to him. While most 14-year-olds nowadays play they Fortnite and watch the Twitch, Elagabalus did what he believed in. I bet if Elagabalus was around today, he'd have an OnlyFans. Which leads me to my big announcement. Story number 3, the man who tried to build a robot messiah. For most of his life, John Murray Spear had been involved with the Universalist Church and had become a minister and preacher. This was until 1852, when John dropped all his ties to the church after a disgruntled crowd beat his ass and posted it on WorldStar. He became deeply involved in the spiritualist movement and claimed to be in contact with a group of spirits called the Association of Electrizers. The group was a kind of ghostly talk show with special guests such as Benjamin Franklin from The Money, presidents such as Thomas Jefferson and John Quincy Adams, and also Benjamin Rush, founder of Big Time Rush. He faked signatures from these spirits to gain authority from a guide from the past. John believed this ghostly gang was supposed to bring new technologies to the people. Spiritualism brought John to a dark place, Lynn, Massachusetts. Here, he and some of his followers set upon his grand spiritual goal, building a mechanical messiah. The mechanical messiah, or new motive power as he called it, was set to bring a new era of utopia. Like all good robots, it was built out of copper, zinc, magnets, and a dining room table. 9 months after building Robo-Jesus, he got a woman to ritualistically birth the machine. And then, sources differ on what happened next. Some say the robot table began to pulsate like a heart. Some say she gave birth to a cyber baby that moved about. And some say it did nothing at all. What happened to the mechanical messiah is disputed as well. Some say it was destroyed by an angry mob in New York. One source says this old lady found it in Colorado. And some claim it never happened at all. But that's boring. One thing is for certain. He never got that new age of utopia. Someone should try and build Robo-Jesus Modern Edition. It might work better this time. Next up is a story of Fyodor Ivanovich Tolstoy's Circumnavigation. Count Fyodor Ivanovich Tolstoy was a Russian nobleman, and as you may have guessed from the name, part of the famous Tolstoy dynasty. Now, unlike other Tolstoys known for their contribution to the world of art and literature, Fyodor's contribution was to the world of trolling. It's 1803, and Tolstoy is part of the first Russian circumnavigation of the world. Nobody knows how Tolstoy got on board, but once there, his chicanery spared nobody. One time, he got the priest who was accompanying the ship blackout drunk. While the priest was unconscious, he got sealing wax and stuck the man's beard to the deck. When the priest awoke, he was forced to cut off his beard in order to free himself, likely ruining his luck. On another occasion, Tolstoy snuck into the captain's cabin with an orangutan and taught the orangutan how to cover a page with ink. He then left the orangutan alone in the cabin, who went on a drawing spree in the captain's notebook. When the captain returned, all of his records had been covered in simian scribbles. Somehow the captain didn't enjoy this ape-jape, and abandoned Tolstoy and the orangutan in the far eastern parts of Russia. From here, he managed to get to Alaska, where he vibed with the natives and acquired multiple tattoos. It's not known what really happened to the orangutan. Some say he stayed with Tolstoy, getting tattoos and crushing pus, while others say Tolstoy ate the poor bastard. Tolstoy somehow managed to make his way back to St. Petersburg, where he found he was banned from entering the city by Tsar Alexander I. Dude's entire life was pretty crazy. He went on to fight against Napoleon, then married a gypsy dancer and enjoyed cheating in card games, which led to a lot of duels, where he killed 11 men. A lot of story about boats today. Also a lot of 19th century shenanigans. And here's another one, The Adventures of Richard Francis Burton. Richard Francis Burton was a British explorer. His explorations spanned huge sections of the planet. One such exploration was when he was stationed in Karachi with the East India Company. He was ordered to report on the activities of nearby gay brothels and brought back suspiciously detailed reports, leading to rumours that he'd become a frequent customer. His most famous adventure was in 1853, where he set off to visit Mecca as a non-Muslim, which at the time was punishable by death. He travelled from Alexandria to Cairo, where he donned the disguise of a Persian doctor. Burton prepared his disguise so thoroughly, he even got circumcised to lower the risk of detection. He then travelled with a group of nomads to Suez, then sailed and caravanned his way to Mecca. At one point, he was almost detected when he went for a piss. He lifted his robe to pee instead of squatting, which is apparently the Arab style. Rumours were that he killed the person that spotted him to avoid being exposed, which Burton heavily denied. Once he arrived in Mecca, he did all the usual fun activities and recorded it in his journal. Being a 19th century English geezer, he also had some 19th century English geezer opinions on the world. He wrote an explicit 14,000 word essay on homosexuality. One theory in Burton's essay was that there was a geographic zone in which sodomy was endemic. Anyway, Burton is pretty interesting, and apparently he was able to speak as many as 29 languages. He kept a large collection of tamed monkeys in an effort to learn their language. It's good to know that even people born over 200 years ago were also trying to return to monkey. That's all the stories for today. Now if you excuse me, I too must become monkey. Adios.